The forgotten legend long before the present age, the galaxy was filled with stories. Some were about heroes who fought in impossible wars. Others were about monsters hiding in the dark. But one story stood apart from the rest, the story of humans. Most aliens said it was nothing but a tale told to frighten children. Humans, they claimed, were once a species from a violent death world. They were too wild, too stubborn, too dangerous. Some said they burned themselves out and vanished. Others whispered they had gone into hiding. But in every corner of the galaxy, one thing was agreed. Humanity was not real. Generations passed. The story of humans became nothing more than a joke. When young cadets spoke of them, their instructors laughed. When scholars researched them, councils dismissed the work as foolish. Humans, the counselors said, are shadows in old records, nothing more. A historian's discovery. But on a lonely archive station far from the busy trade routes, an alien historian named Kareth was not convinced. He had spent years searching ancient records, reading damaged files, and studying forgotten transmissions. Again and again he found the same word, humans. Kareth was small, frail, with a long neck and thin arms. His people had never been warriors. They valued quiet work and endless patience, and Kareth had both. One night, while reading a corrupted log from a 3,000-year-old battle, he found a line that made his scales prickle. The Death Worlders fought like no other. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They broke the fleet of the Wraith Empire in a single night. Kareth leaned closer, his hands shaking. It was not the first mention he had seen, but this one was different. This one was not myth, it was testimony. Someone had been there. The council's laughter. Kareth carried his findings to the Galactic Council. The grand chamber was filled with towering aliens, creatures with shimmering wings, beings of stone and fire, long-lived races who had ruled for centuries. They looked down at the small historian with boredom as he placed his records before them. "My lords," Kareth said, his voice trembling but steady, "the legends of humans may not be legends. I believe they were real. I believe they once walked the stars." The chamber filled with laughter. A counselor with silver skin leaned forward, his voice sharp with mockery. "Humans? You bring us children's tales? Next, will you tell us of ghosts and demons?" Another counselor waved, a dismissive hand. "We have real problems, raiders burning colonies, pirates stealing trade routes, and you waste our time with myths." The laughter grew louder, echoing across the chamber. But then Kareth spoke again, his words urgent. "If they were real, if they still live, then we must ask, where are they now?" The chamber fell briefly silent. For just a moment the laughter faded. Some of the older counselors shifted uncomfortably. Then, with a final wave of dismissal, they ordered the historian removed. The shadow over the frontier, on the far edges of the galaxy, trouble was already growing. Small colonies burned, their defenses shattered. Strange ships appeared out of the void, striking fast and leaving ruins behind. Survivors whispered of a new enemy rising, stronger and more ruthless than the pirates of old. One trader, pale with fear, arrived at a council world and told his story. "They came without warning. They had weapons I've never seen. Our fleet fell in minutes. And then I saw them retreat, not because we fought them back, but because they were afraid." "Afraid of what?" the council asked. The trader's voice shook. "Of something bigger, of something hunting them." But the council ignored him just as they had ignored Kareth. The hook in the dark. Kareth returned to his lonely station, his heart heavy with despair. He had tried to warn them, but no one believed. Still, he could not let go. He stared at the old records again and again, piecing together fragments of human history. Each story told the same thing. Humans always arrived when the galaxy was at its darkest. One night, while he worked late, the station's long-range sensors caught something unusual. A broken transmission, old and cracked, played through his speakers. Static filled the room, then a voice, deep, human, unmistakably different from any alien tongue, spoke through the noise. "This is Earth Fleet Command. Last survivors. We are not gone." Kareth froze. His scales rippled with shock. The transmission was old, perhaps centuries. But it was real. The humans were not just stories. They had lived. They had fought. And maybe, just maybe, they still lived. He pressed the recording to his chest, heart pounding. If the council would not listen, then the truth would spread another way. He would share it with smugglers, with traitors, with anyone who would hear. And far beyond the reach of the council, in the deep silence of space, unseen eyes were already turning toward the frontier. For when the myths of humanity stirred, they did not stir quietly. They stirred with war. The mocking council, the great chamber of the Galactic Council, was alive with noise. Tall banners of alien empires hung from the walls, glowing softly under the dome of light. Representatives of 100 species filled the seats, creatures of wings, claws, scales, and fire. They ruled the galaxy, or so they believed. At the center, small and nervous, stood Kareth. His thin arms clutched the ancient log he had discovered. His voice trembled, but he forced himself to speak. Counselors, I bring proof. The humans of legend were real. They fought the Wraith Empire. They may still exist. The words fell into silence. Then, slowly, the silence broke with laughter. Laughter. Of the powerful, a counselor with silver skin leaned forward, his voice sharp. Humans, this is what you bring us? Old myths and ghost stories? Another, with long feathered wings, flapped them once in amusement. We face pirates and raiders, burning our colonies. And you waste this chamber's time with children's tales. The laughter grew louder. Some banged their hands against the tables. Others whispered mockingly, Deathworlders, monsters in the night? Ha! Kareth's throat tightened. His voice cracked, but he shouted above the noise. If they are real, then where are they now? What if they are not gone, but waiting? For a moment, the laughter died. The question hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Some of the older counselors shifted uneasily, their eyes flickering. But then a booming voice ended the silence. They are gone, declared the high speaker. They burned themselves out. If they were real, the galaxy would have seen them by now. And with a wave of his hand, the matter was dismissed. Guards moved toward Kareth. The warning. Ignored Kareth was dragged from the chamber, his protests echoing. You cannot ignore this. The signs are there. Something is coming. But the council did not listen. They returned to debating trade routes and power struggles, blind to the storm waiting beyond their borders. Outside the chamber, Kareth stumbled free of the guards. His chest heaved with frustration. They would never listen. They had grown too arrogant, too sure of their own safety. Yet in his heart, Kareth knew he was right. He had seen the records. He had heard the broken transmission. Humans had lived. And if the old stories were true, they would return when the galaxy least expected. The frontier burns far from the Council's glittering worlds. Colonies screamed for help. A small mining planet was the first. Enemy ships tore through its defenses. In minutes, fires consumed its cities. Survivors sent distress calls, but no one came. A week later, a farming world fell. Raiders swept down, enslaving entire towns. The Council received the messages and ignored them. To them, frontier colonies were expendable. But the survivors told a different story. They spoke of something strange. After each raid, the enemy left quickly, almost in fear. One survivor swore he heard enemy captains shouting as they retreated. They'll find us. We cannot stay. Who will find you? The survivor had asked. The enemy gave no answer. Kareth's fear back in his archive station, Kareth pieced the stories together. His hands shook as he read the reports. Enemies were attacking with brutal force, but they were not conquering. They were searching. They were afraid. Afraid of what? Kareth's mind returned to the broken transmission. This is Earth Fleet Command. We are not gone. Could it be? Were the raiders afraid of humans? The thought sent chills down his spine. The Council in denial. Meanwhile, in the Council chamber, debates continued. Some minor representatives begged for stronger defenses. Others demanded aid for the frontier. But the High Speaker silenced them. All. These are small matters. Pirates will always exist. Our fleets are busy elsewhere. The silver-skinned counselor sneered. And as for these human myths, let them remain myths. The galaxy has no place for fairy tales. Once again, the chamber filled with laughter. Once again, the warnings were ignored. The hook but outside the council's shining worlds, the void was stirring. In the darkness between stars, massive shapes moved. Engines burned quietly, hidden from scanners. They were not raiders. They were not council fleets. They were older, stronger, more disciplined. Their hulls bore scars of countless battles. There, weapons gleamed with silent menace, and on their sides, faint but unmistakable, were markings in a forgotten language. Earth Fleet Command. The galaxy might not believe in humans. The council might laugh at myths. But soon, they would not be laughing. The first shadow of steel, the frontier was dying. One colony after another fell silent. Their cities burned, their skies filled with fire. Survivors who escaped told the same story. Powerful raider fleets appeared out of nowhere, striking with weapons no one had seen before. The Galactic Council ignored them. To the Council, the frontier was nothing but dust and rocks, too far to matter. They believed their worlds at the center were safe. But they were wrong. The historian's fear on. His lonely archive station, Kareth read every survivor's account. His thin fingers trembled as he placed each report into his growing collection. The pattern was clear. The raiders were not just attacking. They were searching. They wanted something. And each time, when they destroyed enough, they pulled back, in sudden fear as though fleeing from a shadow only they could see. Kareth whispered to himself, "They fear. Humans." The word hung heavy in the air, a word the council mocked, a word the galaxy had forgotten. But Kareth believed. He had heard the broken transmission. He had seen the old war log. Humans were not gone, and if the stories were true, they would not stay hidden forever. The desperate colony in the Yalari system. A small colony begged for help. Their skies turned red as enemy warships dropped from the void. Entire defense grids were crushed in minutes. The alien governor sent frantic messages. "Council, hear us. They are killing us. We cannot hold." But no fleet came. The invaders laughed as they burned cities to ash. "No one will save you," their warlord declared. "No myths, no legends, only death." And then, just as quickly, their laughter turned to silence. The disturbance enemy scanners screamed with alarms. A strange energy wave rippled through space. Something was coming, something massive. On the ground, survivors looked up, confused. The clouds shifted, glowing faintly as if the stars themselves were moving. Above the battlefield, a shadow appeared. At first it was small, then larger still, until the sun itself seemed blocked. A ship. No, a fleet. The first sight. Alien raiders froze. Before them stretched a wall of steel. Warships, hundreds of them, slid out of the void in perfect formation. They were not sleek or beautiful like council vessels. Their hulls were dark, scarred, heavy with weapons. Some bore marks of battles fought centuries ago. Others were fresh and sharp, bristling with cannons. They looked alive, like predators finally unleashed after years of waiting. At their center was the largest dreadnought any alien had ever seen. Its shadow swallowed whole battle groups, and across its side in bold white letters was a name no one expected: Iron Resolve. The transmission. The comms crackled. A voice deep and steady filled every channel. "This is Earth Fleet Command," it said. "You are not alone." The raiders shouted in confusion. "Impossible. Humans do not exist." But the survivors on the colony fell silent. For the first time they felt something other than fear. They felt awe. Kareth, watching from his archive station, replayed the broadcast again and again, tears filling his four eyes. The myths were real. Humanity had returned. The raiders panic. The enemy warlord snarled, "It's a trick! Fire on them!" His fleet unleashed a storm of missiles and plasma bolts. Bright streaks of energy filled the sky. The human ships did not flinch. Their shields absorbed the barrage, their hulls holding firm. Then, as one, the Deathworlders answered. Railguns thundered. Plasma lances cut through space like lightning. Fighters swarmed forward, engines roaring like hunting wolves. The raider fleet screamed in panic. Ships exploded one after another, their wreckage scattering like broken toys. The hook from the colony below, the survivors watched the sky turn into fire. But it was not the fire of destruction. It was the fire of salvation. Children pointed, wide-eyed. Elders wept openly. Soldiers raised their fists in disbelief. The human fleet had not just appeared. They had come for war. And as the largest dreadnought advanced, blocking out the stars, its captain gave one final order. Show them what Deathworlders are. The return of Deathworlders. The sky above Yularis burned. Enemy raider ships scattered like insects, firing wildly into the void. But no matter how much they fought, their weapons did nothing. The wall of steel before them stood strong, unshaken. The myths had come alive. Humanity had returned. The fear of the invaders on. His flagship, the reptilian warlord, slammed his claws against the console. Sparks flew across the bridge. "Hold your ground," he roared. "They are only ghosts in stories. Break them!" But even as he shouted, his crew saw the truth. Human dreadnoughts moved with calm precision. Frigates darted like wolves, striking weak spots and vanishing before counterfire could land. Carriers opened their hangars, releasing swarms of fighters that blazed through enemy lines. It was not chaos, it was not desperation, it was control. Ruthless, disciplined control. The warlord hissed through his teeth. For the first time in years, fear touched his chest. The colonists saw on the surface of the colony. Survivors watched the battle in stunned silence. The sky lit up with streaks of light as railguns fired and plasma beams cut across the heavens. Children clung to their parents, whispering, "What are they?" An elder, his voice shaking, whispered back, "Deathworlders." Hope returned to faces that had been gray with despair. They had begged for help, and none had come. Yet here, when all was lost, the humans had arrived. The human fury Admiral Kincaid stood tall on the bridge of the Iron Resolve. His eyes were fixed on the enemy fleet. His voice was steady, sharp as steel. "Push forward. No mercy." The order raced through the fleet. Railguns thundered again. Each slug tore through enemy ships, splitting them open like paper. Plasma lances burned across the void, melting hulls into glowing fragments. Human fighters weaved through the wreckage, striking engines and reactors with deadly accuracy. In minutes, half the enemy fleet was gone. The raiders, who had once laughed as they burned colonies, were now screaming in panic. The warlord's rage. The reptilian warlord's scales rippled with fury. He slammed his claws into the chair so hard the metal bent. "Impossible! They should not exist! Humans are myths!" A nervous officer stammered, "Then what are they, my lord?" The warlord had no answer. Another ship exploded beside them, its flames lighting the bridge. The warlord's crew looked at him with hopeless eyes. Even they knew. This battle was already lost. The survivors signaled down below. Commander Valek, leader of the broken colony militia, activated his damaged comms. His voice cracked with exhaustion, but he forced the words out. "This is Commander Valek to the human fleet. We thought you were only stories. We thank you." The reply came almost instantly. A calm human officer answered, "Hold fast. Commander, you are not alone anymore." Valek closed his eyes. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to believe survival was possible. The enemy retreat. The raiders could not hold. Their ships broke formation, fleeing into the void. But the humans gave no rest. Dreadnoughts cut down escapees with railgun fire. Fighters hunted survivors like wolves chasing prey. Only the warlord's flagship remained, its engines blazing. As it tried to run, Admiral Kincaid's voice cut through the comms. "Target the flagship, end this." But before the humans could strike, the warlord's vessel twisted into a warp jump and vanished. The enemy leader had escaped. The hook of tomorrow. The battlefield grew quiet. Debris drifted through the void, glowing faintly in the starlight. Human ships hovered above the battered colony, their weapons still hot, their engines burning like suns. On the surface, the survivors cried with joy. They cheered the humans, though most had never believed they existed. Kareth, watching from his archive station far away, leaned back in his chair, his 4 eyes wet. He whispered to himself, "The myths were true. Humanity has returned." But Admiral Kincaid was not smiling. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, he looked into the stars where the warlord had vanished. "This isn't finished," he said. "He'll gather his strength, he'll strike again." Commander Yara nodded grimly. "And when he does?" Kincaid's voice was cold as steel. "Then we show him the full fury of Earth, the wrath unleashed." The battlefield above Yalaris still glowed with burning wreckage. Broken enemy ships drifted silently, their twisted hulls scattering light across the void. But for Admiral Kincaid it was not enough. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, he stood like a stone, his eyes locked on the dark emptiness where the warlord's flagship had escaped. His jaw tightened. "He's still out there," he said quietly, "and until he's gone, this war is not over." The hunt begins. The human fleet did not rest. Crews worked fast, repairing battle damage and reloading weapons. Engineers pushed themselves without sleep. The entire armada moved with a single purpose: pursuit. Across every channel the same order echoed: find the warlord, hunt him down. The survivors on Yalaris watched as the humans prepared. To them, the fleet looked like a storm gathering, ready to sweep across the stars. Commander Valek whispered to his officers, "They fight like no one else. Not like council fleets. Not like raiders. This is different. This is fury." The enemies fear in the far reaches of space. The reptilian warlord raged inside his flagship. His claws left deep scars in the metal walls as he hissed at his lieutenants. "They should not exist. Humans were supposed to be gone." One of his lieutenants, voice shaking, replied, "But they are not gone, and if they pursue us—" The warlord slammed his fist on the console. "Let them pursue. We will gather allies. We will build a force greater than theirs." But even as he spoke, he could not stop the fear gnawing at his chest. He had seen the human fleet. He had felt its fury. The chase across stars. The humans tracked him through one system after another. Each time they arrived, they struck like predators. At a raider base hidden in an asteroid belt, human destroyers appeared out of warp and tore the base apart with railguns. Survivors fled screaming into the dark. At a smuggler outpost, carriers released bombers that burned enemy docks to dust. The outpost leader begged for mercy. Admiral Kincaid gave none. Everywhere the humans went, the same message spread: Deathworlders are hunting. The broadcast. The galaxy soon heard humanity's voice. From the Iron Resolve, Admiral Kincaid sent a transmission across open channels, his image carried to council worlds, pirate dens, and neutral stations. "This is Earth Fleet Command," he declared. "You called us myths. You called us gone. But we were never gone. We watched, we prepared, and now we return." His eyes were sharp as steel, his voice cold as ice. "To those who prey on the weak, your time is over. To those who bring war, we will answer with wrath." The broadcast shook the galaxy. Some races cheered, others trembled. And the warlord, hearing the message in his hidden lair, bared his teeth in hatred, the wrath unleashed. When the humans finally cornered one of the warlord's allied fleets, they showed the galaxy what wrath meant. 800 human warships descended on the enemy like a storm. Railguns cracked in endless thunder, tearing ships apart with every shot. Plasma lances carved glowing scars across the battlefield. Fighters moved in packs, striking engines and reactors with ruthless precision. The enemy fleet did not last an hour. Survivors tried to run, but the humans cut them down. No mercy, no escape. From orbit, alien witnesses saw it all. To them, it was not a battle. It was judgment. The galaxy. Whispers, across the stars, Whispers spread faster than light. They are real, one alien said. Humans are real. They do not fight for power, another whispered. They fight for vengeance. The name that had once been a joke was now spoken in fear and respect. Deathworlders. The hook of what comes next. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kincaid studied the maps of the galaxy, his eyes fixed on the sector where the warlord had fled. Commander Yara stood beside him. "He will gather strength," she said. Kincaid nodded slowly. "Yes, and when he does, we will be waiting. This time, we will not just answer, we will end him." The Admiral turned to his officers, his voice steady, final. "Prepare the fleet. The warlord is not just an enemy of one colony. He is an enemy of us all, and humanity will show him what fury means." The crew roared in reply. The galaxy had thought humans were only stories, but now their wrath had been unleashed, and it was only the beginning. The fury of Earth, the warlord, was running. His flagship cut through the void, jumping from one system to another, leaving trails of fire and broken allies behind. Yet no matter where he fled, the shadow followed. The shadow of Earth. The relentless hunt Admiral Kincaid did not rest. From the bridge of the Iron Resolve, his eyes stayed fixed on the star charts. Every time the warlord moved, humanity followed. "Reports from scouts," Commander Yara said, her voice firm. "He has gathered mercenaries, pirates, slavers, desperate ones." Kincaid nodded. "Let him gather. It will make no difference." The human fleet surged forward, hundreds of warships moving as one. Their engines burned like suns, their hulls scarred but strong. To the galaxy, they no longer looked like myths. They looked like judgment. The Council's panic in the halls of the Galactic Council fear spread. For centuries they had mocked humans, dismissing them as fairy tales. But now, reports poured in from every corner of space. Raider strongholds destroyed, pirate kings hunted, enemy fleets shattered. Some counselors demanded sanctions. Humans are too violent. They will destabilize everything. Others whispered the truth. No one wanted to say out loud, "Maybe we need them. Maybe only Deathworlders can stop what's coming." But no matter what they said, the humans did not ask permission. They moved on their own, their fury unstoppable. The warlord's rage in his hidden stronghold. The reptilian warlord slammed his claws into the table. "They chase me like beasts. They destroy everything I build." His lieutenants avoided his gaze, their scales pale with fear. One finally spoke. "My lord, they are Deathworlders. We cannot win," the warlord roared in fury. "Then we die fighting. I will not be remembered as prey." His eyes burned with hate, but in his heart the first seeds of despair grew. The broadcast of fury. Then came the message that shook the stars. Admiral Kincaid appeared on every open channel. His image filled stations, colonies, even council chambers. His voice was calm, but every word struck like thunder. "This is Earth Fleet Command. You thought us gone. You thought us myths. But we live." His eyes hardened. "To those who bring war, know this. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. We are Deathworlders. And when you cry for help, we answer. When you bring death, we answer harder." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, silence followed. No one laughed at humans anymore. The trail of ash, the human fleet tore through every system the warlord touched. At one raider fortress, dreadnoughts fired railguns that split moons apart. At another, carriers unleashed fighters that rained plasma across pirate docks. Entire fleets surrendered without a fight, terrified of the Deathworlders' wrath. The survivors spread the same whisper. "Do not cross humans. They will find you. They will burn you." The hook of the end finally, scouts returned with news. Commander Yara stepped onto the bridge. Her eyes met Kincaid's. "We've found him. His flagship, his last fleet. He's gathered everything he has." The Admiral's lips tightened into something that was not quite a smile. "Good," Saves us the trouble of searching again. He turned to his crew. Prepare the fleet. This ends now. The engines of Earth roared, the ships aligned. Across the galaxy, stars flickered as the Death Worlders moved once more. The message in the stars, the hunt was over. Human scouts had found the warlord's final stronghold, a fortress carved into the heart of a dead system. Broken moons circled its orbit. Dozens of raider ships guarded the skies, their weapons armed, their engines hot. The warlord had gathered everything: mercenaries, pirates, slavers, even deserters from council fleets. To him, it was an army. To Earth, it was only a target. The calm. Before the storm and the iron resolve, Admiral Kincaid studied the tactical map. Hundreds of red marks filled the display. His officers stood tense, waiting for his order. Commander Yara broke the silence. "It's a trap, sir. He wants us to come to him." Kincaid's eyes narrowed. "Good. Saves us the trouble of chasing him again." The order went out. Human warships slid into formation, engines burning bright. Their hulls, black and scarred, glowed with power. Across the fleet, soldiers prepared for one final strike. The warlord's last stand on his flagship, the reptilian warlord watched the humans approach. His claws gripped the armrest, his eyes blazing with hate. "They come," he growled. "The myths return for me." His officers trembled. Some begged to flee, but the warlord roared. "No, we will fight. Let the galaxy see we are not cowards." He bared his teeth, though fear coiled in his chest. He knew what waited for him: the battle of fire. The sky erupted. The enemy fleet fired first. Missiles, plasma, rail slugs, all screaming toward the humans. The void filled with light. But the Death Worlders did not flinch. Railguns answered with thunder. Plasma lances tore through raider hulls. Dreadnoughts advanced like mountains on fire, each shot breaking entire squadrons apart. Carriers released endless swarms of fighters, their engines howling as they ripped into enemy lines. The battle became a storm. Explosions lit the dark like a new sun being born. Enemy ships shattered one by one, until the void was filled with wreckage and fire. The warlord's end on the warlord's flagship, chaos reigned. Consoles sparked, alarms screamed, crew members begged to abandon ship. Still the warlord stood, his voice full of rage. "Humans, you cannot rule this galaxy. You are too violent, too dangerous." Then his screen flickered. Admiral Kincaid appeared, his face cold as stone. "We don't fight to rule," he said. "We fight to protect." With one command, the Iron Resolve opened fire. Railgun slugs tore through the flagship's shields. Plasma beams cut the hull apart. In seconds, the great vessel exploded, flames swallowing it whole. The warlord's scream echoed once, and then was gone. The silence. After the battlefield grew quiet, what was left of the enemy fled into the void, broken and leaderless. The humans did not chase. They had made their point. On the surface of the ruined fortress, survivors of enslaved species crawled from their cells. They looked up at the sky, filled with human ships, their eyes wide with both fear and hope. For the first time, they believed the stories. The broadcast Admiral Kincaid stood on the bridge. His officers waited. He gave a single nod, and the comms opened across the galaxy. His voice carried into every council chamber, every pirate den, every colony still trembling with fear. "This is Earth Fleet Command," he declared. "For centuries, you called us myths, but tonight you have seen the truth." He paused, his voice heavy with iron. "To those who cry for help, we will answer. To those who bring war, we will answer harder. You named us Death Worlders. Remember it well, because when the stars call, it is Death Worlders who come." The message ended. Silence followed. But the silence was not empty. It was heavy, filled with fear, and with respect. The legend returns. On distant worlds, children whispered the story. Traders carried it from system to system. Refugees told it with trembling voices. The humans have returned. In the council halls, leaders argued in panic. Some wanted to stop Earth. Others wanted to ally with them, but none could ignore them anymore. And on Kareth's lonely archive station, the historian sat with tears in his eyes. His voice trembled as he whispered, "They laughed at me. They called it myth. But the legends live again. He saved every broadcast, every record, every word. This time, the truth would not be buried. The message in the stars. The warlord was gone. His fleet was ash. But something greater had begun. The SOS of one dying colony had echoed across the galaxy, and humanity had answered, not as ghosts, not as myths, but as fury. From that day forward, every star carried the same warning. If you bring death, the Deathworlders will come. And when they come, the galaxy will never forget.